Good morning, everyone, and welcome to American Scouser's Morning Coffee or Tea with American Scouser, brought to you by our friends at Reckless Coffee Roasters. It is Monday morning, so Grumpy is here in whole his glory, and you notice the other dude isn't here. Matush is not going to be able to join us this morning. It's not easy being a prince, had some royal business to attend to, so he's not going to be joining this morning, but hopefully you guys in the audience will help me along. If you guys are like a long time follower of this morning show, people were exposed to a full episodes of just me, and I'm saying exposed to because I'm sure it was pretty painful for quite some time. So this is nothing new for the morning show, but I'm sure you guys wish that it is old for the morning show. But we'll go along. There's a lot to cover, a lot of things to address, and I do really want to get the audience's take on a lot of these things, because looking at the Champions League format and stuff like that, is it just me that's not understanding it? Is it just not clear? Or is it the newspapers that are not understanding it, that are publishing explanations on it? So we'll get to all that. Serzi in the audience, Ryan already. Good morning, gentlemen. Like I say, a lot to get to. A great weekend. I mean, I think the way it's happened, especially, it just signals like this team is definitely destined for like great things, right? So that was like one thing. I even said it as the corner was being taken, that this could be like a title winning corner kick right here, and it was. Ryan says it's solo too much and nice. You must be the only one. Alan is with us as well. Good morning. So let's get to that first, right? I want to show that, because if you guys go, I fall into these like YouTube holes, especially late at night. A great habit of mine. But anyway, so I was watching, and obviously, since I watch a lot of Liverpool stuff, a lot of the stuff that's suggested is like, oh, I bet you'll like this. And then it's like another like Liverpool topic. And a lot of the stuff I'm seeing, including from NBC Sports, a lot of the titles on the Liverpool videos says the coldest, like the win, a controversial win, because Forrest is still complaining. And actually, that's another thing that I want to get to after, once we cover this topic, where that is headed. So I guess, obviously, their main complaint, I initially thought their complaint was really the fact that the time went over. Maybe they thought the whistle was going to be blown when it got to McAllister. And to be honest, if McAllister plays that ball back, I think Gomez is the person back there, kind of like to whip it back in. I really think the moment he rolls that ball back, that game is being whistled over. He's smart enough to look up, and it's still like part of the overall action there because it's happening really fast. And then obviously Nunez gets the great header and the goal. But one of their complaints is, yes, I'm assuming this is what you were like, Ryan, do share what you were fighting about, because I told the biggest complaint they have is the fact that after this happened, where you can see Konate being assaulted by the Forest player, which should definitely be a foul for one. And in most cases, probably a red, because I don't know what he's doing. Like, what is he trying to kick? McAllister's jumping is barely getting to the ball. That dude has his cleats up. So really, if McAllister doesn't jump and has a slow reaction, he's meeting the cleats in his face based on this photo right here. So it's definitely a yellow, if not a red, because it's endangering an opponent, because his face could be in jeopardy over there. So after this happens, the ball gets cleared. Konate is on the ground because he gets clobbered in this, and it's a head injury, so it gets stopped. When the drop ball happens, it's given to Kelleher, and then 2 minutes later, mind you, we score. And I guess like Forest fans are saying, I'm assuming that's why Ryan is fighting them over. That if that didn't happen, then this wouldn't have happened, and then this wouldn't have happened. I mean, I guess we can play that game with anything, because then, if the 83rd minute, if this didn't happen, then you can make a different scenario based on every little thing that happens in a game. The thing that bugged me is we were watching the game with Angie, who usually does not watch the games with me because I'm not a pleasant guy to watch games with usually, especially tense games. I guarantee you she will not be hanging out with me next week against City. And I think she's mostly watching these days to see the kids and everything else. And she knows she's going to be exposed to a lot of those YouTube videos and highlights afterwards anyway. But so there's a moment in the first half where the same exact thing happens, where there was a drop ball, and even though we had the ball when the game was stopped, they gave it to Forrest. I even said, why the hell did they give it to Forrest? We had the ball. Shouldn't we be getting the ball back? I realized it was his head injury, but we should get the ball back. I mean, I guess I can play the same game Forrest fans are doing and go back to that and say, if that didn't happen, we would have had the ball and we would have scored and stuff like that. Yes, exactly. I think I was too lazy, to be honest with you. We were even talking about this last night. I'm like, if I wasn't a lazy person, I could probably go back to Peacock, watch the entire first half again to find the time. It's somewhere like in the 20th, 25th minute, somewhere on there that when that happens, where there's another drop ball and it goes to Forrest instead of us, even though we had the ball at the time. So Ryan says, started with the time that gives why wasted time, got a yellow. Then it was the drop ball stuff. Yes, Tim Howard of all people. That is a good point that he made. I was watching that in his. I think he was filling in for the other Robbie in the podcast as well. So that's when I heard him say it, because after the game, obviously we had the post match and stuff like that. But nobody complained at the time. Like, they afterwards went and said, "Hey, wait a second. How did they get the ball in the first place?" And then that's when they started complaining. And there were huge complaints after the game. And that's why I really thought they were arguing about the time. But that is a good point, that because I initially thought the dance incident was during like the added time. It was not. It was like 83rd or 85th or something like that. But they did get 2 yellow cards, I believe, for time wasting in that extended time. And what goes around comes around because of that. Usually the referees point out that they're adding it too. And we all know when they say +8, it's at least 8. It's not a maximum of 8, because obviously if something happens within that 8, they're going to tack onto that 8. So if you're adding 8 minutes to 45, adding 30 seconds to 8, I guess kind of like makes sense in that sense. So this says Forest fans got justice served, singing about scores not having jobs and go. You really? I did not realize that they were. I did not hear that. I did hear them singing about a shit Andy Carroll about Nunez, and then Nunez comes back and scores. Great goal, by the way. But to be fair, if you look back, I was like, man, if it wasn't for Van Dijk and the guy covering the Van Dijk, he wants to go early and he stops. And honestly, he does kind of go. And that's why I think it's a great header, though, because he then comes back and with just like the power is generated just from like the flick of the neck, and then hits the corner where there's nothing the goalie can do. And obviously we get the huge 3 points. One thing that followed this is, I'm sure you guys saw that afterwards, that they were like complaining to the ref and all that kind of stuff, and there were like yellow cards shown. There was a red card shown. I think they were all to like assistant coaches and stuff like that. So I was watching like Mark Clattenburg obviously commenting on it and kind of like taking the Forest player side, because I think if you do look at it, I understand, and I think that's where Tim Howard was right. I don't think anybody is arguing that the drop ball is not executed correctly, right? I think we can agree on that as well. But I think we're more arguing the fact that, I mean, that was 2 minutes ago. You guys should have gotten over that, I would think, by now when it happens. Like yesterday in the Manchester game, United's fans still feel robbed. I don't understand how you watch that second half and think we deserve to win or anything. But so they were talking about like the Rashford incident, and that ball goes back and becomes a goal. Okay, I got it. That's a bit more understandable to say, well, if that didn't happen, this wouldn't happen if you get the call over there. I think way back against United, I think, wasn't it? Or was it Everton that we had something with Divock? Divock was fouled. That ball went and became a goal. I'm pretty sure it was United's. I'm sure somebody in the audience will remember that game, because he was clipped in the heel. We didn't get the call clear. And then they didn't go all the way back to it because they weren't going that far back and stuff like that. See, this is the concerning part to me right here. So Clattenburg I haven't seen anything official, but I did hear about it on that NBC podcast thing, that they're hiring him as like a consultant or something along those lines. God damn, man! Not only Sergi remembered the game, he gave the date and stuff. That's pretty impressive. I can barely remember what I ate last night. So, no, actually, I did steak. It was good. But so Klatzenberg is now like almost like an advisor. I don't know why you would need like an advisor to be part of your club. Clearly, because he probably has still a lot of buddies in the business that he can influence. That was one thing. But here's the thing, so then he's going to come out. I mean, their Pavarotti lookalike owner basically was on the field too. There was like huge outrage by Forrest, and if they really showed this much passion into other things, they probably would not be close to the relegation zone anyway. But they were talking about, him as a consultant. But if every team, so this is like a really dangerous slope, and I think this is something that's um, is being created now in the Premier League, is all these. I mean, I get exposed to this on a weekly basis, almost a daily basis in the Turkish league, where club owners and like the assistant guy or the director of football and stuff like that always like make these statements, press conferences about refereeing and stuff like that. And I feel like that is sadly where we're headed now with the Premier League, because they're going to be, now they hire Klatzenberg. So after a game, Klatzenberg is going to come out and say, oh, like 36 minutes, that should have been a foul. And then, well, if that happens, then Burnley is going to be like, I guess we need our own Klattenberg. So, I mean, I don't know. This just creates jobs for ex referees, basically. But then they're going to hire somebody else that goes and says, if it was a Forest Burnley game, the Burnley guy is going to say, well, in the 84th minute, we should have gotten this, and then it's going to become. I understand the giving the referees accountability part of the ordeal, but man, it is a very, very slippery slope, because it becomes, and like I said, I know this from the Turkish league, it just becomes a conversation about refereeing as opposed to a conversation about football. And the league basically becomes a political mess, because that's when politics come into it as well. Barcelona did the same thing, says Thursday. By the way, I don't know if you guys saw this. I don't have highlights, and God forbids I even put stills at this point, because YouTube and Facebook and the powers that be get mad if I share any footage. But I don't know if you guys saw the end of the Real Madrid game. I have never seen anything like that, where the ball is crossed into the box, and as the ball is in the air, the referee blows the whistle and turns around, and then Bellingham, I think, scores a goal, but it doesn't count because he had already ended the game. But he literally ended the game as the ball was, excuse me, being crossed into the box. And I think we would, as much as we hate Madrid, I think we will all be livid if something like that happened. It's just like ridiculous. I don't even know why any referee, and I think that was the case in the Forest game. You can't end the game as the corner kick is going into the box. They tried to clear it. They couldn't. It's still in that action over there. I think it's Gibbs with the ball first. I think Cersei was mentioning it, or Ryan was mentioning in the comments. If he just boots it away, I think the game is over. He wheels it. Even if we go get the ball, like Gomez is the last guy, I think, on that corner kick. Even if he goes and grabs it, he's not getting a chance to, cross it back in. The game is going to be over. But they kind of like dwell on it. The next guy kind of dwells on it. It falls to McAllister, and very smartly, he just turns around, looks up, and crosses the ball back into the box, and he's not going to finish the game. It's almost like those would be situations where I've been there. We're leading by one goal. It's the last final seconds, and you're like, one clearance. All we need is one clearance, one solid, like a Van Dijk clearance, way out of the box to put this game and the final whistle kind of a deal. That's what they needed. They didn't do it. They lost the ball. They turned it over. We crossed the ball, and Nunez, great header, and huge, huge 3 points. Yesterday, afterwards, I think we all had hope, because it was like a Manchester derby, probably. I mean, on paper, really, is United, especially after seeing it. I know they have a individually better players, but are they a lot better than Brentford or anybody like that in terms of, being, I would argue that Brentford probably countered more effectively. But we did a live watch along for the Manchester derby. All got hopeful with that goal, but God, United is so freaking bad. And I think the issue there is, it's they. I don't know if I'm a fan of that team. I watched that and I'm like, are we really? It looked like, and I think we talked about it throughout the broadcast. You could see the stats and you could see the pitch and what was happening there. I mean, if I didn't tell you it was United, you would think it was like Luton Town came away to play away to City and it's just hanging on for bare, just hanging on for life over there, just like trying to constantly clear the ball aimlessly, no outlet, no plan on where the ball should be cleared. There should be an outlet over there making a run there. I mean, we play against a lot of teams that sit back, right? And they have a plan. They've had to alter their plan, by the way, because we made that change in the right back due to injury and stuff. But usually that person would be kind of like leaning to our right side of our defense. They clear the ball long, and the dude makes the run there. He might get the ball. He might hold the hold up play, or get a foul to earn at least another 30 seconds, 45 seconds, get everybody pushed out the field. They had literally no game plan in a counter. They sit back against good teams, worked on us. Yeah, and it did work. And honestly, to be fair to them, they do it well. I mean, obviously they have the quality players to sit back with, I guess. But if it wasn't for a wonder shot it felt like the goal could come any second. Holland had some huge misses in the first half, but it did feel like the goal could come any second. But it felt like that in our game as well. And it took a wonder shot from Foden to open up the floodgates. And you know that if that game goes another 10 minutes, that's probably like 5-1. 6-1 or something like that, because it felt like the moment the goal came in, the first goal came in especially, United was already, and they were dead. I know like they're not used to chasing people around maybe, but they were dead. And that team is suitable for counters, but how they can line up so poorly to play counter-attack football is beyond me. It's just, yeah, it was like just scary to watch. And like I say, I always talk about my brother who's a United fan, and he was even saying like, just like how can a United team spending this much money can make 3 passes in a row and play football, and we have to play like we didn't spend any money, we just got promoted. That's what he was saying, and I think that was a good point. Like it looked like a team who just got promoted to the Premier League, and they were like, hey, you know what are you going to do? This is the funds we have. That's the funds you have. We're trying to hang on over here, kind of a deal. That's what it looked like. If I didn't tell you that was the Manchester Derby, there was no way you were saying it is. But so on that note, United had made a mini run, but doesn't look like they're going to make it to Europe now. That's going to be, especially Champions League is definitely out of the picture. But let's talk about that, because I don't understand it. Hopefully somebody will. Okay, so the new format is announced, right? So I'm reading the format. So let's read it together, and then you guys can tell me why I'm not understanding. I mean, I know I'm not very bright, maybe, but Jesus Christ, what the hell is this? Okay, let's see. So it says 36 team league, right? Because all we needed was more games. So we're going to get more games. Lucky clubs. 8 games played against 2 teams from different pots. So there's going to be top 8 ranked teams advanced to the UCL round of 16. We're all clear there, right? There's 2 groups. Everybody plays each other just once now, and then they go to the round of 16. So does that make basically, whoa, like look at that, State Farm just jumping right in. But so I'm assuming, okay, I understand it a bit better now, I think. But so the top 8 ranked teams, though, it says, advance to the regular UCL round of 16. But there's 2 8-team groups, correct? So, like, are we getting 14 teams here and 2 from the 9 to 24? Because it says the 9 to 24 is going to go to a 2-legged playoff to reach round of 16. So those guys are going to play each other, and then, they might be able to still get to the round of 16, which means those guys are actually going to play even more games now. So I don't understand how, especially in England, most leagues only have one local cup, which is like the Turkish, I think Ziraat Bank Cup or something like that, and then the Germany has a cup and Spain has a cup, but they don't have 2. I'm pretty sure they all have 1, so they can make it work a bit better. I don't understand how the Premier League is going to insist on having both the EFL and FA Cup with these games added in, and with a hint of international games, I'm sure, in the middle as well. So that just does not make sense to me. So what do you guys think of this new format? Like it? Hate it? I don't really get it. What something I don't get it like in overall, and that's part of like what I don't like maybe when the FA Cup and stuff like too. I would rather have all the cup matchups with home and away. So both sides get the fair shots because it's going to be very important. I mean, here's the thing, right? The top teams are going to still make it to the 16. I mean, that's basically what they're ensuring. They're taking away, let's face it, this is basically to make the bigger teams more money. And in the way the coefficient and everything is being done now, to guarantee more further rounds. It's almost like they're taking additional steps to make sure we don't drop people along the way and everybody gets it to the 16. Each team will play 8 matches against 8 different opponents. So yes, 4 home, 4 away. So you could be getting, and that's what I don't like, like one of your key games could be home and away. But we all know those 8 games are not really going to matter that much at the end of the day. They are taking away the chances, like I said, that the top boys, the big boys, are dropped along the way. Because right now, it's a group of 4, right? So they have 6 games, 3 home, 3 away. One poor result, one expected result can put you in jeopardy of not making it to the next round where only 2 teams make it, and you're very likely going to drop down to Europa. So it's a bit easier and maybe a tad more likely that a weaker team from, I don't know, pot 3 or pot 4 or whatever has a chance of making it to the next round if they get like one, maybe like they don't even need to. I think if you get a one solid one and you get a couple of draws or something like that, win a home game, you might go over another team like PSG or something like that, which can drop along the way. Well, UFA says nobody wants that, or they don't want that because it affects the money income. So I think they come up with this format where now the pot 3, pot 4 team does have to get 3 or 4 of those results to be able to make it to the next round. I mean, that's how I view this. I think it's just a way of taking care of the big boys, both pretty much ensuring that they're going to keep going, and B, more money because it's more games. It says something about in the CBS article I was leaving that I was sharing on the screen, something about eliminating meaningless games and stuff like that. Really? Is it really eliminating meaningless games though? Because if the guy who's third is playing the guy who's dead last, that's still a meaningless game, isn't it? I mean, because they're going to advance to the next round anyway. I really feel like this is everybody who was up in arms about the Super League and stuff like that. They're like, oh, they're like taking soccer away, they're buying out the soccer, blah blah blah. This is the same exact thing, but UFA and FIFA are so good at scamming people out of money and tricking them into like doing something that they do. This is good, right? More games, and in the background, this is all they're doing. This is like a soft Super League in some ways. So he says no replays in the League Cup from next season. Did they have replays this year? I thought it was only the FA Cup that did replays, right? Yeah, the only meaningless games are these international conference games. Oh, well, honestly, the international conference games are basically FIFA making money off of friendlies. I mean, that was FIFA's way of saying, hey, man, you guys are playing these friendlies anyway. Why don't we do something where those are more meaningful so you guys get more people attending? There's more interest in it. So you guys make more money. But then in meanwhile, FIFA is getting their cut that they would normally not get as much of if it was just like regular friendlies. So these teams were going to play friendlies anyway. Shocker, Ryan. I know, shocker. But I mean, it's probably one of the most corrupt organizations in the world, but they're at least smart about it. I thought the whole stupidity, if somebody came out and explained, look at what FIFA is doing, look at what UFA does. This is why we're thinking the Super League and stuff. It would have been probably a lot more effective when they came out with it, because that's where we're headed. This is step one. I don't know if I see those days, but in 5 to 10 years, basically that's what's going to happen, because the next step is going to be like, hey, you know what? I don't think you guys should even be in this round of 16 thing yet. Why don't we do a bunch of eliminations for pot 3 and pot 4 teams and then take only one of them up there, which is what they were talking about when they did the Super League thing. But this is their version. So maybe this is what Klopp has done, Kente. I don't know. I really, like I say, I talked about it on the podcast before. I totally get the whole club thing. And I think it's a lot more about there's more to life kind of a deal. And hey, look, I mean, Klopp is one of those guys. Um, who sometimes you say that, right? You're like, I mean, I'm like that. I drive the entire family nuts because I can't just like vacation and sit on the beach. I get a lot of American cultural stuff done when I'm on vacation, actually. So, but I mean, I got to be doing something like anything, even if it's like just playing soccer or something. I can just like sit there on the beach, sit by the pool. I just can't just sit and relax. And club right now, it does sound great. You're like, oh, we'll go to vacation beach, sit by the pool, I would drink, blah blah blah. But when I'm there, I'm like, oh, okay, now what are we doing? Because I'm just not going to sit here. So I get the same feeling with Klopp. I mean, he might say right now, yeah, wouldn't that be great to spend some time with the grandkids, see the family more, get it relaxed. I don't need all the stress, stupid questions from journalists like 3 times a week and stuff like that. But then sometimes you do that and you get there and you're like, now I got to do something. So I can see Klopp like 2, 3 years from now getting the itch again and say, man, I missed that, and then go back into it. Don't know where it will be now. We know it's not going to be the Premier League, I guess, which I don't know if you guys would like the scenario. But if he comes back to Liverpool, that means whoever replaced him is not doing so well. Brian says the Germany job beckons. And I've always said this, but I don't think Klopp's way and methods fits a national team job. I really don't think it does, just because he's more about team building, like improving over time, doing things better, doing the same thing, but doing it a lot better by repetition and practicing and stuff like that. And you really don't get that with the national team. I mean, you just like get together, play, practice twice, and then go play one of these meaningless conference games and stuff like that. So, and it's a lot harder to team build. There's a lot more politics involved in the background and team selection and stuff like that, like who's going to get cold and stuff. I really don't think it fits him, but I do know what Brian is saying. It is a manager light, if you will, if you wanted to kind of get in there, but not only get in waist high, like if you wanted to get in back into management waters, I guess in that sense it fits. But I think in terms of a job and what it entails and what you want from that manager, I really don't think it works at all. But we'll see. It's going to be interesting if he goes back to another league and does try to do it there. There are some teams that I can think of him being a good fit for, like in different leagues and stuff like that. Or hey, maybe he will not be doing anything and he will like just playing with the grandkids after all. He just seems too intense of a character, but I know he's like a pretty deep dude overall, the way he sees things and stuff. That's one of the few, like the things I like about him the most, actually. I mean, even when he talks about like religion and stuff like that, he's a very religious person, but I think above that, like how he sees things, like, so I'm not a religious person myself, but the way he, aside from religion, like where he can separate it and see like how like spiritual side of things and stuff like that, and being a good human kind of a concept that I really relate to. And I think that's probably what I really like the most about the dude, to be honest with you. About, obviously we love the wins and the fist pumps and all that kind of stuff, but one thing that, as a human, that's what I really like about him. When he talks about that stuff, he's a pretty deep dude. So maybe he has thought long and hard about this and says, hey, you know what, this is what I'm going to do from now on, bring on the grandkids kind of a thing. So either way, good luck to him. We know he's not going to be coming back to I think we're not going to play against him in the Premier League. We know that. So it is manager lights. I just don't, like I say, I just don't think it fits his strengths in terms of that. I mean, I see a more guy like, I don't even know what you really want in an international manager, to be honest with you. It's kind of like a really, really different gig. You want somebody experienced, probably somebody who has done well for the national team and stuff, who understands the national team concept maybe as a player and kind of like can pass that on, because it's really like a weird gig. You can't really develop players. Like I said, there's a lot of politics involved in almost every freaking country. There's politics involved in who gets selected. There's so many more cliques, guys who play in that country as opposed to guys coming from outside that country, all kinds of stuff. So, speaking of managing, by the way, we do record our first episode of our gaming show with the Polish Prince yesterday. and quite the comedy. Yeah, if you're a fan of our Monday morning shows, you gonna be I think you will really enjoy this one. We did about like an hour, a bit more than an hour yesterday. I think we did pick a different game to do it. I always football tactics and glory is actually the game we're doing that we started with. And yesterday was more about creating jerseys and the crest and all that kind of stuff. And then we did get a couple of games and not looking so good so far. But if you do want to get access to that content, it's going to be the first thing that we upload to Patreon. Actually, probably sometime later today or tomorrow. That's going to be going to all the Patreon members. We do have a new tier now, as you can see, for the $1 a month one. That one is just to kind of like dip your toes in the Patreon waters, if you will, and then we will be putting a lot more like extended clips over there just to show what you're missing, just rub it in your face, I guess, so that you do jump up to the other tier afterwards. But at least you'll get to see what kind of shows are going to be on there. There's 2-3 more being recorded this week later on once we work out the scheduling thing. But we did the gaming one, and I would love to get feedback. I asked in the Discord channel, and nobody, I don't think, has even heard of the game. And I guess I had only played it once, like a few hours on vacation, because like I said, I got to be doing something during vacation. So I had played it then. It's almost like a turn-based strategy game on football. So there's still like the whole development transfer issues and stuff like that, but the game part of it is done as almost like a turn-based strategy kind of an audio. So it's definitely interesting. We're learning as we go. But it was like, so there'll be clips later on for the dollar club, like the shaving thing, members. And then, like obviously the full episode is going to be, is the game on Patreon? I don't see it. It will be later on. It's probably going to be, like I say, later on time. We just recorded it last night. So it takes a long time to make us look good on tape. So we'll be working on that and then get it published. So, Brian says, can we just have a recorded match where we're playing unarmed with Thiago? That's what we talked about, like we were like, do we do FIFA? Do we do Football Manager and stuff like that? And we will probably do one of those down the road over here. I don't think Matish wants to take me on all the time and get exposed to that. So I think we said maybe we'll do co-op. I know there was some talk about maybe doing a club or something like that. Maybe that'll be one of the things for one of the tiers in Patreon and stuff like that. But I know this whole American Scouser thing overall started with just like, as long as we're having fun doing it and people are enjoying it and we get the feedback, we're going to keep doing it. So yeah, do join if you have not so already. Like I say, the first tier is $1 a month now. And then obviously you can go and you get more as you go in terms of like perks and swag and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so now that I got that plug out of the way, I just know when we said all this manager thing, there was quite a manager conversation going on yesterday. Okay, looking ahead to the week, game on Thursday. So with the game on Sunday, that's what I want to ask and see where everybody is at with this. Do you guys want to roll the dice and send a weakened squad there, and then maybe still get, Nunez, Soboslai, and maybe Mo another 10-15 so that they're ready for the City game? Or do you want to make a mix where you get the result you want as well? This is not like an easy game, especially away. Like I say, I watched them play against Galatasaray at home. It is a small stadium, but they do have the atmosphere. I mean, most European stadiums do, and this does, even though it is like a small one. So it will be a tough match to go to, and I don't think it's a game that you want a lot of kids playing in, because this is something that they're not going to be used to playing in. I understand playing in big games in Premier League, like cup game and stuff like that. But I think we all know an international away game is a whole different ball game, because after a while you can you get more of the same, right? I mean, obviously every stadium has its own atmosphere and some fan bases are louder and more impactful. I get all that. But an away game at Nottingham Forest is similar in a lot of ways to an away game at Luton Town or Burnley or something like that. But then when you go away to Czechia and then play against Prague, that's a totally different atmosphere. So has to be take it into consideration and not throw a bunch of kids out there at the same time. I think give Mo 15, says Brian. I think we're hoping for that because I feel like if he does not get 15, because we saw this in the Southampton game, right? We talked about it before the match. We said, hey, if you do not see Nunez and like Sobosla and stuff out there for like 10, 15 minutes, we probably not see them start against Forest. And we were right. We didn't see it. So I take the same thing, and I agree with Brian. If we do see Mo for 15, 20, then you can say, okay, he's probably going to start against City. But if you don't see him on Thursday, the best you're going to see is probably Mo on the bench against City. And I do really think we need him. And one thing that I got from yesterday's game, and I was saying it as we were signing out, is on the counter, they can be had. And they do play reckless. They knew that's all United has as well. So it's not like, oh, they'll play different against us and our counters. They won't. They know that's how they play. And I think Nunez, Mo on the counter can be very effective. That they might be able to do some things that I think United was. Nunez is not going to step because somebody touched his arm like Rashford did. I mean, let's face it. Is it a foul? Yes, because I think if you're going full speed, somebody just like pulls your arm, it's gonna affect your momentum. But the way he just stopped, I think that's the part that, as a United fan, I will be aggravated with that because that's too soft. Keep going. First of all, if you keep going and win the ball, you're 1v1 with the goalie. So you're giving up on an opportunity like that for one. And it shouldn't be that easy for you to just quit. It's one thing where sometimes players are trying to go, they get yanked by the shirt and they stop because there's another like 4 or 5 guys in front of them. Nobody stops if the only person left in front of them is the goalie. And that's what pretty much Rashford thing. And Brian says Walker can be had. I mean, that's one thing though that I thought they did wrong. They kept playing the counter on Walker's side, which I think that's extremely poor strategy because while I agree Walker can be had and he has a stupid mistake in him, he is similar to Gomez in the sense that they can take a bad position, but because of the speed, they can make that up and they can track back. And I think Walker is the same way. There were a couple of times Walker was out of spots and he was able to make ground and sprint back. The dude is fast as heck. So he can do that. Whereas if they went to the other side on Ake's side or something like that, put Rashford on that or Garnacho or somebody like that, you have like a huge pace advantage and not recovery time. I don't know why they didn't do that. And I think if we play a bit, I have a lot more faith in us playing smarter in that game. It's a huge, huge game. I don't think we're going to sit back as much as United did either, because you guys know that we want to go at City and we feel like that's when they can be had. Go up the middle. They have their center back playing the false 9, false 4, if you will. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. They can be had on the counter, and that was one takeaway that I had from yesterday. They just didn't know. We can afford to get a draw on Thursday. City game, we have to go all out. City have to win on Sunday. Yeah, I wondered that actually. Do you guys think City looks at that game as a must win? Or do they look at the Arsenal game as a must win? Where is the Arsenal game? Is that in Manchester or is it in London? I guess let's find out. City Arsenal next game. I thanks Google. It's giving me because I think that's like going to be interesting. I don't know if City sees this. Too bad we don't have it. So that one is in Manchester on March 31st. I would think they would consider that as a must win. And this one, a draw, I think both sides. That's why I think we can see a bit more cagey match. I know both these managers are not, it's not their style. They go all for it. But I think they'll be okay with a draw. They're not going to, I mean, if you reverse the positions, you don't want to lose. They definitely don't want to lose this game because that's almost like it's a 6-pointer, right? You don't want to lose this game. But I think they would be, if they got a draw, going back to Manchester with a draw, I think they would be okay with that. They would not panic as much. It would be a different scenario if we were talking about Arsenal in this case. And that kind of works for us, I think, because now we know they're going to face each other still, and we got both of our games with them out of the way. Albeit the Arsenal one is not obviously out of the way in a good kind of way. But Sunday game against is a must win because once they got ahead, they will not be caught, and they know that. I agree to that, but I don't know. Like, if I'm a City fan, I don't take it back as coming back from this game because I think it's safe to say I don't see any of the teams. Us with all the injuries. If you don't have the injuries, it feels a bit more unstoppable, right? But City, especially this year, does not look the same City of the past, where I can see either three of these teams going with not losing any points. I really don't see it. I think they will all lose some points along the way before the season ends. I know we're used to City just going on this roll and stuff. I don't think this is the same City side. So that's why I think they will be okay with the draw. But I know what Hassan is saying. They will feel if they win this game, that's when you might kick off the evil City team that wins every freaking game and doesn't lose points, because that would be concerning and that would be a huge morale boost because they are chasing right now. But that's why I think they will be. They know. I think in Arsenal there's like a different mindset compared to City. I can see City players knowing this is a long, long race, man. Like, and not take every game like it's the final game, as opposed to Arsenal. Maybe because of their fans and the fan base and how they react, but more importantly, the players themselves have not been in this situation. I mean, they choked it away last year, but they haven't been, they don't have a lot of experience being in title races. And from what all players say, I mean, none of us have been there to, I guess, relate to, but from all what players say, it's like a different animal, different mindset that you just gotta, it's not just all talk that it's like next game up, next game up, next game up. You just have to have that mentality and not have anything affect you along the way. But the quad is still on. So that's a good deal. I don't think any of us have any hope in today's game for Arsenal, which is actually the only thing that gives me hope. Is the fact that, it's a game that we're like, yeah, that's never gonna happen, because those are the games that come back and shock you, I think. But Ryan says, I really feel the Champions League will take it out of both teams. City doesn't have the bench anymore. That is a good point, too, actually. Yeah, City does not have the depth. And as their games get tougher in the Champions League, I think that could be a thing. The longer Arsenal stay, yes, this is the weird thing, though. I said this a lot last year, and it was ended up being the complete opposite. I thought when they got eliminated out of the Europa, I thought that gave him a better chance to go at the Premier League so they could just focus on the Premier League. And it totally backfired. They went downhill. So there's something to be said about rhythm, I think, too. I mean, we've had this, and obviously City has had it, right? There's something to be said about rhythm where these guys go another win, another win, another win, and now you build momentum. Whereas when you're going, you're like a loss, a draw. We still got past, but we lost and stuff like those. That affects the rhythm and the belief in, especially when you're a team like Arsenal, you're probably semi-doubting yourself, even if they will deny it after last year. I think that can kind of hurt them if they get out of the Champions League. So I'm torn on that. Normally, I would agree with Sergi and say, hey, the more competitions they're in, the more tired they will get, or the more distracted they will get, and they will play. They might look ahead to Wednesday, kind of a situation and stuff like that, especially in the later rounds. And it is the Champions League, so it could be different. It's tougher competition they're going to go against, but obviously they got to beat Porto first. But at least the boys don't have anything till Thursday, so that's a big bonus that they get some rest finally. I will be back tonight with the gang, Galley and Bickler, 7 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock Eastern, as always. We'll break down the game, and most importantly, we will have trivia to get those guys in a bad mood, and we'll be in a good mood. So that's how that Monday show works. But thanks to everybody keeping company this morning on here, as well as on Instagram. I do apologize to Seth Smith. I just saw the comment that was posted, but he was talking about the refereeing conversation we were having earlier, that it was a minimum of 8 minutes and stuff. But thanks to everybody as always. Thanks for keeping me company. Ryan says good solo show, but I'm sure you guys don't want to see a lot more of this. But yes, the Prince, after he attends to his royal responsibilities, should be back next Monday. And then we will probably post like a mini clip of the disaster that was the gaming experience last night on our regular YouTube channel as well. Much shorter one, the longer ones will go to the Patreon, and obviously the full episode to those people over there. Brian says, see you in a couple hours. Damn right. I'll see you guys at 7 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock Eastern tonight. Have a great day, and we'll see you guys then. Take care, people.